The distress call reached Earth's deep space listening posts on the far rim of explored space, a signal wrapped in static and desperation. Translated through fractured bursts, it carried the same plea again and again. We are dying. Please, help us. For most empires of the galaxy, such a call meant nothing. Weakness was a liability, and those who fell to stronger hands were merely stepping stones in the endless climb of power. Yet for the Deathworlders, for humanity, it was different. They had come from a world where everything wanted to kill them, where survival was never granted, only earned. On Earth they had learned one lesson: when someone cried out in the dark, you answered. Admiral Kira Voss stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Iron Resolve, staring at the holographic star chart. "Play it again," she ordered, though she had listened a dozen times already. The broken voice filled the air once more, laced with static and hopelessness. Her officers shifted uneasily. They had heard of traps like this before: pirates luring in rescues, empires staging false pleas to draw rivals into ambushes. But Kira's eyes were cold fire. "They called for help," she said, her voice steady. "And the Deathworlders will answer." The fleet assembled, 20 warships, heavy cruisers, carriers, and destroyers. Their jump through the black was silent, the void swallowing them whole. When they arrived, they emerged into chaos. The planet below was burning. Its skies were streaked with plasma fire, its orbital stations shattered and adrift. Hulks of alien ships drifted in pieces, their crews long dead. Cities on the surface glowed like molten scars, entire continents smothered in black smoke. The sight was enough to twist the stomachs of even hardened Deathworlder veterans. "By the stars," one officer whispered. "Scan for survivors," Kira snapped. But as the sensors reached outward, the trap was sprung. Space tore open. Hyperspace ruptures bloomed across the system as warfleets poured in, sleek, angular vessels bearing the insignia of the Krith Dominion, one of the most feared empires in the galaxy. In seconds, the Terran fleet was surrounded. Hundreds of enemy warships locked their weapons. Kira's jaw tightened. "So that's how it is." The lead Krith warship broadcast across the system. The voice that answered was deep, cold, and mocking. "Deathworlders. You came as expected. You are predictable, slaves to sentiment, to mercy. Did you think we did not know? That we would not see how you rushed to rescue every dying ember? You are not saviors, you are prey." The crew listened in silence, fury simmering behind clenched teeth. Kira responded calmly, her voice carrying steel. "If you wanted prey dominion, you chose the wrong hunters." The channel cut. Then the first shots were fired. The void erupted into war. Plasma lances slashed across the black, railgun slugs streaked through shields, and missiles bloomed into blossoms of fire. The Iron Resolve shook as enemy salvos hammered its shields, but Deathworlder ships were built for punishment. Their hulls groaned, their reactors roared, and they returned fire with brutal precision. One Terran destroyer dove through a formation of smaller Krith craft, its autocannons shredding them apart before it rammed another, sacrificing itself to buy the fleet breathing room. Carriers launched waves of fighters, nimble and savage, darting through enemy lines like wolves among sheep. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, tactical readouts painted a grim picture. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. For every Krith cruiser they burned, another 2 emerged from hyperspace. The trap was working. Humanity had walked into a slaughter. And yet they did not break. Because Deathworlders were not like other species. They had been tempered by a planet of poisoned skies, crushing oceans, predators with fangs like swords. In their blood was defiance. And now, in the endless dark, they fought like cornered beasts. "Target their command ship." Kira barked. The Terran fleet concentrated fire. Dozens of railguns aligned, discharging tungsten rounds at near-light speeds. The Krith flagship shuddered under the assault, its shields collapsing in bursts of energy. Fighters swarmed it, unleashing torpedoes that tore through its hull. Finally, the Iron Resolve delivered the killing blow, a beam of searing energy that split the ship apart. The Dominion's commander died screaming as fire consumed him. For a heartbeat, the battlefield stilled. The Krith had not expected prey to bite back so hard. "Admiral," her second-in-command said urgently, "we can't hold forever. More coming. If we stay, the fleet is lost." Kira looked at the burning planet below, at the shattered cities and silent cries of the dead. "We came to save them," she whispered. "But there's nothing left to save." Her eyes hardened. "So we'll make sure the galaxy remembers who we are." She opened fleet-wide comms. "Deathworlders. You've seen the truth. They set a trap for us thinking we would cower. Show them what it means to hunt us." The fleet roared as one, voices rising in defiance. Engines blazed, weapons fired, and the Terrans surged forward, not to escape but to strike deep. They carved through Dominion lines, tearing apart ships far larger than their own, leaving wreckage scattered like bones across the void. Every Deathworlder vessel fought until its guns ran dry or its hull split apart. At last, with only a handful of ships remaining, Kira gave the order. Jump. The survivors tore open hyperspace windows and vanished, leaving behind a battlefield of ruin. The Krith had won the system, but at a price so bloody it seared itself into their memory. Hundreds of Dominion ships lay in wreckage. Their easy prey had bitten with fangs sharper than any predator. And the message was clear. The Deathworlders had answered the call for help. The galaxy had given them betrayal in return. And now war was inevitable. From that day, whispers spread across the stars. If you set a trap for humanity, you'd better kill them all. Because if even one ship survives, they will come back. And when they do, the hunters become the hunted. The transmission was faint, trembling through the black ocean of stars, but its meaning pierced the heart of every human who heard it. The Heliants, a species known for their artistry, for their great crystal cities and songs that resonated across entire continents, were dying. Their words, choked with static and sorrow, carried only one message. We cannot fight. Please, help us. The Terran High Council gathered in silence, the chamber dim and solemn. Admirals, ministers, and strategists sat in a circle of steel and shadow. Some argued that humanity could not afford another war, not after the scars left by the Orion campaign. Others said the Heliants were too far, their system beyond safe supply lines, that sending aid would risk humanity's own colonies. But Admiral Marcus Caros rose, his uniform crisp, his eyes burning with conviction. He had fought through Earth's darkest wars, seen humanity nearly crushed, and lived to know why they had survived. He pointed to the holographic projection of the Helianth world, a jewel of green and silver under siege. We survived, he said, his voice low but cutting through the chamber, because when we were broken, someone among us always stood. We are Deathworlders. We don't turn away when the weak cry for help. If we do, then we're no better than the monsters tearing their world apart. The vote was cast. The council was divided, but humanity's creed was not. The fleet would sail. The Terran war armada burned across the void. Dozens of ships, carriers bristling with fighters, cruisers lined with railgun batteries, dreadnoughts whose cannons could split moons. The Heliant system came into view like a scar on the cosmos. Their homeworld was aflame. Great cities that had once glimmered with crystalline spires were now blackened, shattered under orbital bombardments. Their floating gardens and mirrored seas boiled under fire from the Dominion fleet. Civilians fled in broken shuttles, only to be torn apart by hunting frigates. The Dominion, the same empire that had enslaved 100 worlds, was here to erase another. Admiral, we're reading mass civilian transports trying to escape atmosphere, said Commander Lyra Chin, her voice tight. They won't last 5 minutes. Then we give them 10, Karos growled. All ships, engage. The void exploded into war. Terran destroyers surged ahead, flanking Krith Dominion carriers with packs of fighters at their side. The first salvos roared across space. Railgun slugs tore through Dominion frigates, missiles blossomed into firestorms and ion beams cracked shields like glass. The Dominion responded with cold precision. Hundreds of ships turned in unison, their plasma lances cutting swaths through the black. A Terran cruiser, Valiant Dawn, took a direct hit, breaking in two as its reactor imploded. But the Deathworlders didn't falter. Their fighters dove like falcons, weaving through enemy lines, slashing bombers apart before they could target civilian transports. Entire wings sacrificed themselves to block enemy fire, their wreckage shielding helpless shuttles as they climbed out of atmosphere. Transports are clear of the upper atmosphere, Chin reported. Then cover them to the jump point, Karos ordered. The Dominion tried to intercept, but every time they closed in, Deathworlders were there, firing, ramming, tearing enemy ships apart piece by piece. To the Heliants, watching from their shuttles and ground shelters, it was a vision they had never imagined. They were a people of gardens, of songs, of peace. They had no concept of war, no armies, no soldiers. Yet here, across their skies, humans fought like gods of iron and fire, roaring defiance against a galactic empire. For the first time in their history, the Heliants felt what it meant to be defended. Hours dragged into eternity. The Dominion pressed harder, bringing in reinforcements, their fleet stretching across the system like a tide of blades. For every ship the Deathworlders destroyed, 2 more emerged from hyperspace. On the Resolute Fury, Karos studied the tactical readouts. His fleet was bleeding. A third of his ships were gone. Ammunition stores were dwindling. The Dominion was still massing. Chen's voice cracked through the silence. "Admiral, if we stay they'll grind us down. We'll lose everything." Karos didn't answer at first. He looked at the fleeing helianth transports, at the thousands of fragile lives clinging to hope. Then his gaze hardened. "We didn't come here to win a battle. We came to give them a future." He switched comms to the entire fleet. His voice carried through every channel, steady as steel. "Deathworlders, listen. We've done what we came to do. The helianths will live because of you. But the Dominion will not forget this. From this day forward, humanity has made its choice. We stand with those who cannot stand alone. If you're afraid, remember this. They think us fragile, but we are Deathworlders. Show them why that name carries fear across the stars." The response was thunder. Crews roared, pounding consoles and decks. Pilots clenched their sticks with fire in their veins. Across the fleet, the Terrans turned their ships to face the enemy once more. The final push was nothing short of madness. Human carriers unleashed their last fighter wings in suicide runs, crashing through Dominion lines with torpedoes primed. Destroyers dove into enemy formations, guns blazing until their hulls broke apart. A Terran battleship, the Hammer of Sol, deliberately rammed a Dominion dreadnought, detonating both ships in a cataclysm that lit the void for 1,000 kilometers. The Dominion reeled. Their losses mounted, their neat formations shattered by the raw ferocity of a species that refused to die quietly. Karos gave the last order. "All surviving ships, jump. Get the civilians to safety." The remnants of the Terran fleet tore open hyperspace and vanished, carrying with them the helianth survivors. The Dominion held the system, yes, but not the people. Humanity had stolen victory from their grasp, and in doing so, had declared war. The helianths would never forget. To them, humanity became more than just warriors, they became legends. They wrote songs of fire and steel, of strange protectors who came when no one else would. For the Dominion, the lesson was different. They had counted humanity as another fledgling race, easily broken, easily ignored. Now they understood the truth. By saving the helianths, the Deathworlders had chosen a side. And when Deathworlders chose war, they did not stop until one side was ash and silence. From that day across the spiral arms, one phrase spread in hushed tones. "If you cry out in the dark, the Deathworlders will come. But if they come, the galaxy will burn with them." The beacon pulsed across the stars, a rhythm of despair that echoed through the void. At first, it seemed like another distress call, the kind that faded unnoticed into the endless night. But to the Deathworlders the message was different. Buried in the coded sequence was no plea for help, but a warning, carved into the last heartbeat of a dying race. "They're coming. Run." The voice belonged to no one living. The species who sent it had been erased, their homeworld scoured to ash. The beacon was their tombstone, a final shout into eternity. On Earth's orbital defense station Solspire, Admiral Elara Dane stood before the projection. The signal looped in the darkened chamber, its steady pulse thrumming like a war drum. Around her, officers whispered, unease threading through even hardened veterans. "They didn't ask for rescue," her aide murmured. "They wanted us to flee." Elara's jaw tightened. Humanity did not run. Not from storms, not from wars, not from predators that once stalked their birth world. They had survived Earth. And in surviving they had learned something no alien could truly understand. When death came, you met it head-on. "Trace it," Elara ordered. "Where did it originate?" The reply came quickly. "Outer spiral arm. A system marked dead. No life signs. No functioning colonies. Nothing but ruins." "Then that's where we go," she said. The Deathworlder fleet sailed into blackness, engines flaring like spears of light. Their ships were grim and armored, built with the scars of countless wars. They did not bring diplomats or healers, only weapons, for the warning in the beacon had left no room for negotiation. When they arrived they found silence. The system was graveyard still. Planets hung like hollowed corpses, their surfaces cracked and charred. Cities had been peeled open like carcasses, their steel skeletons left to drift in orbit. Entire moons were missing, reduced to dust belts circling the star. And then they saw it. The first of the enemy. A shape vast and terrible, more beast than machine, drifting among the ruins. It was a warship, if such a word could be used for something alive. Its hull pulsed with organic light, plated in chitin that rippled as though breathing. Tentacles of steel flesh coiled around its core, and from its surface swarmed smaller craft, like hornets spilling from a hive. The Deathworlders had seen 100 empires, 1,000 fleets. They had never seen this. Sensors screamed. More shapes emerged from the dark, hundreds then thousands. A swarm of biomechanical predators, their forms writhing with grotesque symmetry. They had consumed the species who sent the beacon. Now they turned toward the newcomers. "Contact!" shouted the sensor officer. Ilara's voice cut through the growing panic. "Form the line. They warned us to run. We'll show them what happens when Deathworlders don't." The swarm descended. The first wave of alien craft hurled themselves like living torpedoes, slamming against Terran shields, clawing with talons of plasma and acid. Terran railguns opened fire, spitting tungsten slugs that tore through chitin and bone, spraying the void with shards of alien flesh metal. Missiles streaked in arcs, detonating with nuclear fury that ripped swaths through the enemy lines. But for every alien vessel destroyed, more emerged. The swarm seemed endless, a tide of living war. A Terran destroyer, Vigilant Spear, was dragged down under a flood of boarding organisms, spidery things that latched onto its hull, drilling through armor. Moments later, the destroyer's comms cut off, its reactor flaring in a silent scream as it was consumed from within. On the bridge of the flagship Stormbreaker, Ilara gripped the rail, her eyes locked on the horror unfolding. They don't want conquest, she realized aloud. They want extinction. The aliens did not demand surrender. They did not broadcast threats. They simply devoured, reducing every trace of life to nothing. And yet, the Deathworlders held. For hours the battle raged. Fighters darted among the swarm, carving gaps with laser fire, sacrificing themselves to buy seconds for the fleet. Cruisers fought back to back, covering each other as alien waves slammed against their shields. Carriers launched drones that detonated in suicidal bursts, turning swarms to dust. Still the enemy pressed in. On the tactical map, red warnings bloomed like fire. A third of the fleet gone. Ammunition reserves dwindling. Hulls breached. Engines crippled. Admiral Chin, the fleet's tactical chief, called, her face pale but steady. "If we stay, they'll consume us just like the others. We'll be nothing but another warning beacon." Ilara's voice was low, iron in her throat. "Then let this system burn with our defiance. Let them know what it costs to face us." She opened the fleet-wide channel. "Deathworlders. You know what we are. You know where we come from. Earth taught us to fight with stones against storms, to bleed against beasts with fangs larger than our bodies, to endure where no one else could. These things out there? They think we are prey. Show them the mistake." Across the fleet, cheers and roars shook the void. Fear turned to fury. The Deathworlders charged. They didn't retreat, didn't scatter. They plunged straight into the swarm. The Stormbreaker's spinal railgun fired, its round shattering a Leviathan war beast into molten shards. The battleship Unbroken detonated its reactor deliberately, vaporizing a cluster of enemy hive ships in a fireball that lit the system. Squadrons of fighters dove into alien motherships, detonating inside their throats, tearing them apart from within. The swarm faltered. For the first time it reeled. Its endless hunger met something alien to it, resistance that did not break. But victory was not theirs. The enemy was too many, too vast. One by one, Terran ships fell, their names etched in fire across the void. Resolute Fury, Iron Resolve, Hammerfall, Guardian's Edge, all lost but never silent. At last, with only a ragged handful of ships left, Ilara gave the final order. "Jump. Now." The survivors tore open hyperspace and vanished, leaving behind a battlefield littered with alien corpses and human wreckage. The swarm remained, but scarred, bloodied in a way it had never known. The Deathworlders had not won. But they had done something greater. They had survived. And in surviving, they had shown the swarm what no other species had dared, that humanity would not go quietly, would not cower, would not vanish. The beacon that once said run now carried a new meaning. From the ashes of that system, a message spread across the stars. They're coming. But so are we.